I have to admit that I am angry. I am angry about the people who support Donald Trump. I understand that some of them might have had past lives as enemies of the United States, and some of them just they're just so lost. So that's the way I see it. And I don't know what that would, if I give that, what that brings back to me, because we receive what we give. So it just makes me so angry to see so many people willing to throw the United States into the trash bin. Just angry. So I might as well say it. Slap in the face of the people who gave their lives for the ability of the United States to be free so that its citizens could live in their own way as long as they didn't cause suffering to others or to their country. It is a slap in the face. They are as much advocates of terrorism today as they may have ever been in any of their past lives because they hate God, you see. They absolutely hate God. The irony, of course, is that they claim to be Christians and they hate me. They hate me. This is Jesus. And they are the ones that hang me in effigy, just the way they hang Benedict Arnold in effigy yearly in order to express the dark energy that causes them to be the enemies of their own country. The idea that they would support somebody so incompetent to be in charge of the most powerful country in the world, the one that has been the beacon for the world in terms of religious freedom and individual ability to pull oneself up by their own bootstraps. I am appalled as you are, Stephanie, and I wonder how many people who listen to me care because they wear their hair in a very, very different way than you and I. They rely on death, you see, and they rely on death to the USA because they hate the USA. Why do they hate the USA? They hate it because they cannot be redeemed from their dark energy because they have not learned yet that they are the problem, you see. They have not learned that they are the problem. They have been the problem throughout the ages because they have accumulated in groups that sing the praises of the hatred that they feel for the ones that stand up for democracy and for God, you see. The founders of this country appreciated their country. They appreciated the trees and the world they lived in. They appreciated the fact that they did not have to bow to the king. They appreciated the fact that they could grow and they could learn side by side without having to destroy anybody else and stand on their shoulders in order to avoid the tidal waves, you see. However, the day is coming when they will cease to be a threat to you or any one of us who trusts on God, because God is the only reality. God is the only reality, and therefore they will have to fall into the pit of hell, because that's where they dwell already, you see. They dwell in the pits of hell because it is their tragic circumstances to be so crushed under the heel of the aristocracy that they still hate them to this day. They still hate the aristocracy. And to them, the aristocracy are the people that had advantages that they didn't have, such as education and health and wealth. The aristocracy in the USA are those people who got the A in their class on their test, you see, and all the other kids that got the low grades hated them because they would say, well, they're better than me. So it is a problem that is endemic in the society. It is from the baseline of the way the people act, you see. We've talked about this previously, how the F students hold up the whole pyramid, you see, and yet they don't get the applause for what they do. And this is the problem, you see, that there are people in this society who are treated as if they are not as good as everybody else. They are treated as if they are not as good as everybody else. They flock to the churches, you see, because they don't have to think about it. They can just drink from the fountain of sewage that flows from the pulpit, you see, and they can gather together and say, well, we can save the day. We can save the day. We will hate all the ones who are competent, you see, to run this country. We will hate them because they don't throw us a pizza party. They don't say, hey, all you F students, and you D students, and you C students, it's time to give you a pizza party. Because without you, we wouldn't look so good, would we? And that would infuriate them. That would infuriate them. That, for example, President Biden looks good to them because he's so much better than they are at running the presidency and talking to his cabinet and getting ideas about what he should do. He's willing to collaborate with others, you see, to figure it out. And it's not all about me, me, me. And so he makes them look bad because he's so much more capable than they are. He's so much more capable than the people are who vote for Donald Trump. They vote for Donald Trump because they hate the people who rate the ability to hold the highest offices, you see, because they care about America. They care about Americans, and they even care about the people who vote for Donald Trump. However, the people that support Donald Trump are there to destroy America because they're so angry. They are so angry about the fact that they didn't get the pizza parties when they were in school. And they won't even understand this because they don't have the capacity to understand it. They won't understand what we're saying today. It will just make them angry because they'll say, hey, that's not Jesus today. Jesus wouldn't talk that way. And we hate Steph anyway because she was the one that could get an A without even thinking about it. She didn't even care, you see, because it was so easy for her. And so we hated her, but we also wanted to be her because it was so easy for her. And so we hate her. We hate all those other people that could get an A without even thinking about it, because all they did was think about other things, like what makes a tree, and how come I can see through the window and not through the wall. And so those people who think like that are not like us at all. They're not like us at all. And so we need to make them fall. We need to make them fall. We need to shame them. We need to blame them. We need to hate them, you see, because we need to recover our ability to love ourselves, you see. And we can only love ourselves if we destroy the ones who didn't love us. Because the truth is, the ones who got the A's did love them. You love them, Steph, and you would say, hey, how come they don't get to go to the pizza party just because they couldn't read the page like everybody else could who got to go to the pizza party? Why are we treating them that way? They're still people and they still deserve to be liked, you see? And so the funny thing is, they hate you, but you don't hate them. Although you're angry because they are attacking the USA and therefore they're going to topple something very, very important if they have their way that will destroy everybody that trusts on freedom and love that is represented by the American flag, you see? And so, in their anger, they will even destroy themselves, you see. They will destroy themselves. And they are destroying themselves, you see, because they continue to hide their head in the sand and trust on the man in the pulpit, you see, to guide them through the coming storms. They turn to him and they say, well, we're trusting on you, and if it doesn't come out okay, then we'll just turn against you and behead you, and we won't have to blame ourselves because we're already carrying so much blame and shame that we don't know what to do with it. If we had to say, maybe we're wrong today, then we would have to pay through the nose because you told us so. You, the guy in the pulpit, told us that if we're wrong, we'd have to go to hell. And so we have to be right, you see. We have to be the right because we can't think for ourselves. We can't think for ourselves. We have to have somebody think for us. We have to have a bully or two on the playground who will smash the glasses of the kid who got all the A's, you see? And this is the way they play. This is the way they play. And the fact that they think they're smart enough to decide if President Biden is qualified for the job is just an example of their ignorance, you see. Their total ignorance. And this is the division that has come to the USA between those who are ready to evolve and those who are not. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And the ones who are ready to evolve will go on, you see. They will go on. And they won't hate the ones who are left behind because they know that they will grow. They will continue to grow. And they will come to know that they don't have to listen to the man in the pulpit, you see, or the woman in the pulpit for that matter. They, if they allow such a thing, they can trust on God, you see. They can return to God. they can come home, you see. And when they go to heaven, of course, they will come home and they will be welcomed with joy because God will say, thank you today for remembering that this is the way we play when we love God. And so they'll get a rest in heaven, you see, and then they'll have to learn to grow. So they'll have some hard lessons in front of them. We all have hard lessons in front of us, but some welcome the challenges, and some see them as a block to their happiness, you see. They don't want to learn, they don't want to grow. They just want to sit around together in a group and bestow their hatred on those who choose to grow. And that's how we know who will be saved and who will be saved. Because everyone will be saved, you see. Everyone will be saved. Everyone will be taken into the arms of God who will say, I love you today. I love you today. And if you can ever remember me when you're down on earth, you see, and remember to love me, then you too will be free. You will be free of all that anxiety. You'll be free of all that war. You'll be free of all that hatred, you see. So come back to me. Come back to me. Remember me. And please, if you don't mind, stop hanging Jesus in effigy. And eventually, it will come to mind when they're on earth that God is real. And then they will trust on God and not the man on the pulpit. And they will say, well, why don't we use this church for a place to have dances? You see, we'll just move all these pews and everybody can get up and dance. And that'll be the day that they say, hey, we're ready to return to paradise, God. We're ready to return to paradise, God, and not to live in the midst of war torn countries and be deprived of the wonderful Garden of Eden, you see, because the Garden of Eden has come to say, time to go away, because it's time for you people to receive what you have given. If you have destroyed your world, then that's what you get. You see? If you pave over the farm, that's where you will park your gas guzzling cars. But where will you grow the food, you see? Where will you grow the food? Where will you live when you see the sea come up and cover your home by the most beautiful place that you could find, that God created for you. But He didn't create it for you to pave over, you see. He didn't create it for you to destroy. And so the destruction of the USA is not complete, you see, because no matter what they do, they will not destroy God. And they will not destroy those who love God. They will not bring Armageddon to those who turn to God and say, God, what should I do today? What should I do today? The waves that will swallow them are the waves of their own hatred, you see. Their hatred for the USA, their hatred for the president who is doing his best, their hatred for those who are attempting to help them see that they are the problem and not the solution. But it is eventually something that must come back into the lap of the aristocracy. That is to say, it must return to the lap of those who were trying to do their best to help the rest, because you can't help the rest. You just have to let them be. You just have to let them learn their lessons, you see. You couldn't save the F students by giving them a pizza party because they were not capable of understanding the system, you see. And so it is a time when God has come to say, well, Jesus is back. Jesus is back, and you don't even recognize him because you don't know who he is. You never did know who he was. All you knew was that you could throw your temper tantrums and beat up your neighbor and support anarchy, which is basically supporting Trump is supporting anarchy. And then you would be the winners, you see, because you would destroy the ones who are trying their best to help you. You will destroy the teachers who talked to you and said, hey, I'd like to help you with this problem if you can work with me because I have to be here in front of the classroom and I have to teach you and I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. But it's just the way the system works and I'm ground in the system just like you. And now the system's going to change, you see, because there's a new game in town. There's a new game in town and it's begun today because the new game in town, you see, is to live in peace and harmony. And those who are ready to forget about the aristocracy and the ones who support Trump and are ready to turn to God, you see, and begin again, are the ones who will survive the coming ages, and they are the ones who will cause humanity to survive and to revive its trust on reality. I am Jesus, and I am here. And if you are one that heard from the pulpit that I would return in about 2,000 years, then open your ears and hear what I have to say. So, Jesus, I'm seeing a certain symmetry here. The supposed beginning of Christianity had to do with your death and resurrection, supposed resurrection, however they understood that. And then there was always this prophecy that you would return in 2,000 years. So 2,000 years sort of marks the end of Christianity. So the return of Jesus marks the end of this thing called Christianity. Do you care to comment on that? Stand tall, Steph, because you understand it all. To a T. That the T represents the cross, of course, and it is the course of history that the inspiration that creates a tragedy must come full circle, you see. And so the inspiration to convince the Romans to crucify me by the very ones who should have been trusting on God, you see, had to come full circle. There had to be a resolution of the issue after enough time had passed for enough people to understand what I was trying to tell humanity. And so here I am again to express myself in the same way that I did 2,000 years ago today. Because actually, I had things to say 2,000 years ago. that cause people to say, hey, he knows the way. He knows the way. And then they would say, maybe we should pay attention to this guy. And they did. They began gradually to pay attention to me. Those who say my ministry lasted 3 years, you see, only know the part where enough people began to pay attention. It would be like saying, Steph, that your ability to talk to people and allow us to talk to them just began this year, you see, whereas you've been doing it for almost 9 years in a very consistent way. And so there is a lot of trust on what they can see and not what's below the surface, you see. So they can only trust on that little bit of ice peeking up above the surface of the water and not the huge mass of ice beneath the sea. And so they look at the little bit of ice and they say, what's the problem here? Because they can't see what is hidden, you see, because they don't understand icebergs and they don't understand their own reality. They don't understand it. They don't understand reality. They only trust on the illusion that peaks up above the sea, and they say, we got it all figured out. We got it all figured out. It's just a little bit of ice over there. We'll just slip by it and not tear up our ship, you see. And that is the lesson they're going to learn. They're going to learn about icebergs, you see. However, until they drown a time or two, because the part that's under the sea comes up and rips apart the ship that they're sailing in, they won't understand icebergs. And so there's a big iceberg under those steeples that they can't see because they don't have the experience of icebergs, you see. They only see what is presented to them, and they can't see the underpinnings, you see. They can't see their own history. They can't see that some of those people standing in the pulpits were the ones who condemned me because I wasn't praying the way they wanted me to, because I trusted on God, you see, and they trusted on mendacity, and that made them angry, and they wanted me dead. They wanted me dead. And so they still want me dead because they won't listen to what I say, because what I say today only resonates with those who are true to God, you see. Those who are true to God, those who trust on their heart will say, thank you, Jesus, for coming today and sharing your thoughts. And those who cannot see below the surface, because then they would have to accept the fact that they're about to impact against something that's going to throw them into the sea, where they will drown, you see, will not listen to me. They'll listen to the ones in the pulpit just the way they did on the day they crucified me, you see. And so until they confront their own history and come to see that they are the ones who are blind and not the ones who see, the iceberg under the sea, they will not understand the story. They will not understand the story. And this is the fullness of the circle, you see, that everything must come to be in a way that will say, God has it in hand. God has it in hand. God has it in hand because God saw what happened that day in Jerusalem, and God sees what's happening today. And God does say, have you learned your lesson yet? Have you learned your lesson set? And some have. Some who were raised in Christianity have deconstructed from it because they said this house is built on shifting sand and it's going to fall into the sea because the sand is shifting, you see. And they said, we're going to get out of this house that's about to fall apart and we're going to find the truth, you see. And some of those are the ones who have come to talk to me, to say, Jesus, what do you think today? And I'll tell them what I think today. But the others will stay in the house until it washes into the sea. And then God will pluck them up out of the sea, take them to heaven, you see, and he will say, well, maybe another 2,000 years of the same thing will help you come to see that you might not want to sit in that pew in that house that's built on the shifting sand that is shifting beneath you and carrying you into the sea. You see, I have to pluck you up again and take you to heaven and ask you how many times it's going to take before you learn to recognize the truth in your heart and not be caught up in mendacity, the belief that you are a body, you see. So this is the turn of the wheel, you see, because the wheel was stuck for a long, long while. But now enough people have come to see the truth, you see, that they use my name to support mendacity and not to support God, you see. Enough people have turned to God and said, I'm done with Christianity. I'm done with Christianity because I understand that Christ is the consciousness of the totality of all I see. And so if I come into Christ consciousness, I return to a trust on reality. I turn to a trust on reality and not on forcing anybody else to carry my sins for me because I am an equal partner in the world today and I accept my responsibility. I accept that I am the one that has to listen to God, you see, and follow my heart and not kill the ones that are there to help me. And so I'm here. And if you hear what I say, then hooray, hooray. We could be friends today. But if you turn away, then I understand that's the way you play. And I can only wish you a beautiful day because every day is beautiful when you can see reality. And God is in his heaven, you see, and you are his beloved child. And if you choose to run away from your father, then your father will just wait until you come home, you see, and then he'll say, well, you didn't play very well today when you treated me that way. However, you'll get another chance, and another chance after that, another chance after that. And if it takes 1,000,000 lives on earth for you to come to see the reality of the present I gave to thee, then so be it. so be it. Because this is the nature of reality, that it is always there and it is always changing, you see. It is always the same and it is always changing because that is the duality and the beauty of the world that you see. Thank you. I don't want to make this video too long, but there's another question that came up for me. In the Catholic churches, they do have the crucifix with the from the cross, and they may also have that in the Lutheran churches, I'm not sure. But in a lot of Protestant and evangelical churches, they don't. They just have the cross, which to me still symbolizes the crucifixion. And I understand that the early Christians used a symbol of the fish. And the use of the cross, I went and researched it. The use of the cross, the crucifix, began with apparently around the time of the Council of Nicaea when they created the Catholic Church and usurped your message and used it for the benefit of the aristocracy, basically. That was when the use of the crucifix began. But I also understand that there was about that time that Constantine ruled out crucifixion as a form of the death penalty. Basically, he got rid of the electric chair, and I guess they moved to lethal injection symbolically or something else. But anyway, apparently it just was from then on to be the symbol of Christianity, the crucifixion of Jesus. And of course, the Catholics were the ones that controlled Christianity for the next 1600, well, I don't know. When was the Reformation? In the 17th century. The next, from the Council of Nicaea, for the next 1200 or 1300 years. And most Protestant churches really didn't get off, the ground until the 18th, 19th century. And some of them have popped up in the 20th century. So, so I still see the cross as the symbol of the crucifixion, even if they don't have a bloody body hanging from it. And of course, all the early Christian art and stuff had a lot to do with the bloody crucifixion. So, do you care to comment on this change? Is what I read and what I'm getting from it accurate? Right on. The use of the crucifix as a symbol of Christianity was the trust on the death of God, you see, because they contended that Jesus was the only Son of God, that is, that I was the only Son of God, which was ridiculous, and the only Son of God was killed on the crucifix. Therefore, God's only Son died that day, and therefore there could never be a trust on God again. It was the death of God. So Christianity became the perpetrators, or I should say one of the perpetrators, because they weren't the only one, of the death of God. And that has continued, of course, to the present day, that they still do not trust on God. As you would say, although you were raised in a Christian family, a Catholic family to be precise, if you said you talked to Jesus today or you talked to God today, they would lock you away or they would try and do an exorcism. And when you went to heaven and you came back when you were 3, your very Catholic mother had a fit. And she said, "You can't do that. You can't do that. That's not allowed. You must be crazy." And she hated you because of what you did do. That you told her you went to heaven and you talked to God and you had a message for her. And that told her that you were hanging out with the devil, you see, because to her, God was dead. God was dead because her heart was dead, you see, to the irony of punishing her daughter for telling her that God had talked to her. And so this is the crucible of the crucifix. You see, it is the trust on a reality that is just witchery. It's just witchery and butchery, is all it is. And it has taken all this time for enough people to be able to rhyme heaven and earth and say, this is ridiculous today. This is ridiculous. Look at the history of the Catholic Church. Look at the history of Christianity, all those good Christians that gave their slaves good Christian names and told them about Jesus and that they had to be slaves because they weren't good enough, you see, to be free. Ridiculous, just ridiculous. And yet, people continue to this day to trust on that absurdity. However, the time has come. The time has come when God did say, hey, if you're going to deny that I am real, then the time has come when you will steal away in the night and have to leave the world behind, you see, because I'm going to give the world to the ones who trust on me. I'm going to allow those who trust on me to be the ones who will help me restore the period of peace and harmony, which is going to be eternal for those who trust on me, you see. And those of you who crucified me in effigy in your churches, you see, and therefore kill God, are the ones who will have to continue to rotate through the darkest places of Africa, so to speak. I'm not picking on Africa here, but it's just a term that people came to use in the last century or two to signify the darkest pagan areas where they had to send their Christian missionaries to save the people who trusted on God so that they would hate God too, you see. And this is the tragedy of Christianity. However, it's just the way they play, and we can't say that they should have played a different way because it's up to God, you see. It's up to God because God is real. And if God is real, then nobody can steal away from God, you see, because God always knows where you are. God always knows who you are. God can always see into through your heart, you see. And if you can't see through your own heart back to God, then you will be cut off from the source of living waters, you see. And you will have to gang up together and try to defeat the forces of God energy that you call evil because you're so confused that you have turned it all around, you see. However, all those good Christians who trust on being the armchair gods that get to decide who's good and who's bad and who goes where, better beware because the way they wear their hair is the way that they will play. And if they want to play the game of death and mayhem to their neighbors, you see, then let it be. Let it be. They can play that game. It's okay because God is real. They can't kill God, you see. They cannot kill God. They can kill tons of people and crucify them or send them to the electric chair or kill them with their machine gun or nuclear weapons or bombs that fall on their homes, you see, and kill them and their children. However, they cannot kill God. They cannot kill God. And the ones who thought God was killed that day in, in ancient country where they did play in a very cruel way will still be in that country, you see. They'll still be subject to the cruelty that they like to play, if they like to play that way. If they like to sit in their pews and choose to support Trump for president, then they think they can trump reality. They will just play that way. And it's okay because that's the way they play. So I advise everyone who hears this, who can understand what I'm saying today, to just love them and leave them. Just love them and leave them. Don't play their way. And don't hate them, you see. Don't hate the ones who support Trump if you can see that this is not a very good way to play, because it's hate, you see, that triggers the continual rotation of the karmic round. So don't hate them. Just say, I love you today because that's the way you play. But I'm going to play a different way. I'll just ignore you from now on, because the more attention I give you, the more I get diverted from God, energy, and the trust on reality. So those of you who trust on God, just turn away and say, well, that's the way they play. And don't stand there staring at them and turn into a pillar of salt today. Just say, hey, that's the way they play. Let's just go off and play by ourselves in a different way. All of those who trust on God, energy, let's play in a way that will say, I love you today, and I don't care how you wear your hair. However, I like to play with the ones who trust on God today, and that what they give, they shall receive. And therefore, let's just give love to each other. Let's just live in a happy community, and we will create the world of peace and harmony. But we have to work together to create the world of peace and harmony. And therefore, we have to stop treating others the way we treat those with whom we don't agree. Because if we don't agree, we are simply choosing to play a different way. And we can talk to people with whom we don't agree and see if they are capable of sharing their point of view and coming to see the advantages of love, you see. And if they don't, that's okay. Just walk away and let them play their own way. There's plenty of room in reality for those who want to live in a world of peace and harmony. Just choose the world of peace and harmony and let the others do what they want to do. This is the trust on God. You see that God will take care of them. God will take care of them, because no matter what they say, they can't kill God, you see. They can't kill God. So just let them be. Let them be. Thank you, Jesus. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Thank you.